Hey everyone, Miss Neferato's here. I hope that the beginning of your unexpected break is going smoothly so far. I know it just started, but I hope you're not already through all the work that was sent home. But if you are bored, I've got an art project for you guys to start, maybe if you'd like to try. It looks like this. It's an optical illusion project where you can create all kinds of curved lines using only straight lines with using a ruler or a straight edge. I really like this project because you can really personalize it and make it your own. You can choose all kinds of different colors. I just use two colors here, maroon and white, but you can use whatever colors you feel like. You can use different kinds of materials. I use marker and pencil for this one, but you could use colored pencil or crayon or whatever you have at home, which is really fun. Let me show you how it goes. Materials that I have a pencil, I have a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can use anything that's a straight edge, like a piece of cardboard from an old cereal box, or even just a piece of thicker paper. I also have an eraser, just in case. If you don't have a marker, you don't have to use it, but I have one. I also have some colored markers here for my final product, but you can use colored pencils or crayons or whatever you have at home to add some life and vivaciousness to your project. So the first thing I'm going to do, in order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and divide my paper. I'm a little bit partial to triangles, but you can divide your paper into whatever shapes you want as long as they have corners. So you could do rectangles or squares, or they don't even have to be shapes that you know, they could just have corners. So any polygon will do. So I'm just going to divide my paper like a W or an N right now. That's a little backwards. In my original, I added a lot more triangles. I probably had 8 triangles that I used for this original, but I'm going to do this one in a little bit more simple fashion. So now that I've divided my paper into triangles, I'm going to go ahead and take my ruler and I'm going to start from one of the corners and go all the way around my triangle. But instead of drawing from one corner to another, I'm going to draw from one corner to just past the next corner. So it even helps me if I make a little mark with my pencil. I have a hard time kind of visioning or drawing a straight line without a guideline. So I'm going to go from one corner to my mark, just like this in one of the triangles. So my next corner would be this one up here. So instead of drawing right to my next corner, I'm going to go over about a centimeter. It's about a little bit thicker than a pencil or about as wide as my pinky finger. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So from my corner, I'm going to go to my next corner. So again, I'm going to go in just a little bit past that corner. I'll go from one corner to the next. And this is the secret. That project looks super complicated, but once you know the secret, it goes by super fast. So I've done the first layer. I'm just going to keep going around and around and around until I don't have any more room to keep drawing my triangles. See, you can see that it's starting to layer up and spiral inside. So you guys can also see that I'm never drawing past my last line. If I go past my last line, my lines are going to get really confusing and hard to see. Sometimes I'll even just leave my pencil where I want my ruler to go, and then I'll just twist my ruler to my last corner. That also helps. I also can turn my paper too if that's easier to draw. Oops, there we go. Made a little mistake. No big deal. I'll erase that later. So if you're comfortable doing this with a pencil, you may even want to do this in marker, because if you want it to be nice and bold like my original, you would have to trace over all these lines again, which is not a big deal, and it just takes a little bit of time. But it looks really cool when it's done, and I think it's worth it. As the triangles get smaller, it gets a little easier to draw those lines. And once they're small enough, sometimes I don't use my ruler because they're short enough to draw a straight line. And quickly go through my other triangles so I can show you how to color once we're done with that. I'm going to go on to this one in the corner first. And it doesn't matter if you switch directions as long as you stay in the same direction for the whole triangle. So I just left off at the top, so I'm going to go down here to the bottom again. So I'm going to put my pencil there. For me personally, it's easier to put my pencil where it needs to go first. But you do whatever is comfortable for you. adding some color. At this point, I can go over my pencil lines with some marker if I want to, or I can just go ahead and start coloring right away. I think I'm going to go ahead and start coloring for this version. I'm going to pick a nice bright color because, you know, I want to feel bright and cheery. So when I'm going to do my coloring, I'm going to try and do this in a pattern. It doesn't really matter where I start, but I like to find the little triangles in the centers first for me. So I like to leave little triangles white, or you can color them in, but I like to do it in a pattern. So if I'm going to leave this triangle white, the one next to it I'm going to color. So if I'm using a marker, I like to outline my shape first so it stays nice and neat, and then I like to fill it in. I might just leave mine blue and white, but you could easily do two colors. You can treat each triangle as its own color scheme and do different colors for each triangle. It's really up to you. This is a really fun project to really make your own and be creative with it. So don't be shy about making them really different. If you have trouble following the lines with a marker, you can still use your ruler or your straight edge to keep those lines nice and neat when you trace over them with color. And if you're using something else besides marker, it might even be easier to keep those lines nice and neat. You can see that my example that I've got here isn't really big, but you can really make an amazing project if you use a big sheet of paper, but it might take you some time. I try and do my coloring in the same direction so that the lines that the marker leaves behind look nice and neat and look like they make sense. So I'm going to go back to my center right now, and I'm going to leave my center empty and white because that's what I chose, and I'm going to go ahead and color the next one and keep that pattern going. If I wanted to use two, but I'm going to show you guys how I did the shading on my original. And I can even do shading on top of my other marker if I wanted to with a darker colored pencil. But just for the sake of showing you how to do it, I'm going to use just a regular pencil to do my shading in my white areas. So I like to pick just one part. I usually start with the skinnier part of the triangles that are left, and I try and vary my pressure. So when I want something to look darker, I press harder with my pencil. And as I move farther away from that part, I lessen the pressure on my pencil, and I get lighter and lighter, nice and gradually. The change should be a little bit at a time. So I can't really see exactly where it starts to get lighter. It just happens to do that all by itself. So anytime I come across a skinny part of a triangle like this, I'm going to use my pencil, and I'm going to get lighter and lighter as I go. This project looks really great when you use warm and cool colors together. So if you maybe use yellows, reds, or oranges, and the other colors are blues, greens, and purples, they really make each other stand out. You can use a black colored pencil on top of those colors, or you can even use the complementary colors of the colors that you use. So for example, if you used green, you could use red as the shadow color, and those colors would really stand out. thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you don't have any trouble doing this project, but if you do, don't be afraid to reach out to me for any reason. I'll be home, so have a great break, guys. Look out for more videos soon.